You're so lazy you gotta rest your head on a brick? Reminder, you don't live here, go away. This is the 2015 Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk. Now before you even think about purchasing one of these, it's very important to know the differences between the 4-cylinder engine and the 6-cylinder engine, both in performance and fuel economy. They make a big difference between enjoying the vehicle or having a lot of regrets. The base engine is a 2.4 liter 4-cylinder at 184 horsepower. In two-wheel drive, it's rated at 22 to 31 miles per gallon. In the same configuration, the 3.2 liter V6 puts out 271 horsepower and rated at 21 to 29 mpg. Now with the Trailhawk package, this mileage is going to drop some, and for 3 reasons. For starters, we have the weight and drag of the 4x4 system. Then you get these giant wheels and tires. And the suspension is lifted an extra inch off the ground for better ground clearance, but it causes a lot of air drag underneath at freeway driving. So on the V6 Trailhawk, mileage drops from 21 to 29 to 19 to 26 as we see here. And on the 4-cylinder Trailhawk, the mileage drops from 22 to 31 to 19 to 25, which is actually less than the V6, officially anyway. Now previously we did a full video test on this Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk with the 4-cylinder engine. But with locking differentials and a 56:1 crawl ratio, the 4-cylinder performed quite well off-road. In real-world driving, we got 21 miles per gallon in mixed city traffic, expressway commuting, and at 75 miles per hour with a full load of gear and people, the best we saw was 23 miles per gallon. Passing power on the freeway left a lot to be desired. Now I already know the performance of this V6 will run circles around the 4-cylinder, but we don't know what the fuel consumption figure is yet. We'll be showing you that at the end of the test when we rack some miles up. By the way, all Cherokees come with the 9-speed automatic with manual shift override. We'll talk about this gearbox a little later. And for the ease of off-roading, you have the control knob here: 4-wheel drive low, automatic, snow, sport, sand, mud, rock. All computer operated. You get the idea. Now before we go for a drive, we need to look at the interior first, and Chrysler did an excellent job here. The materials and workmanship are first rate, very unusual for something in this price class. The gauge cluster looks nice and gives lots of useful information. Steering wheel buttons are simple to use. You won't need to look at the owner's manual to operate the climate control system. Just a few simple knobs and buttons, the way it should be. No beefs with the audio or navigation system either. The glove box doesn't look big, but it is very deep. You can put a lot of stuff back in there. A medium-sized console. And under the seat, room to hide lots of things down there. More valuable than my handkerchief, of course. And the sun visors slide back and forth to keep the sun out of the side windows. Something that should be on every vehicle on the planet, but not always true. And we do get a full-size spare tire, which every SUV that's ever going to go off the road should have. Are you listening? Range Rover and BMW, as well as quite a few others. Dislikes. All 2015 Cherokees have the engine stop-start that kills the engine if you're waiting at a stoplight in order to save gas. These features are very annoying, and you don't want something like that when you're in a 115-degree desert. It doesn't exactly do much for the air conditioning. Problem is, you have to turn the sucker off every time you start the car because it comes on every time you start the car. And under the rocker panels, we have this plastic shelf that collects dirt and mud, which gets all over your pants when you're getting in and out. Me no like. By the way, the Jeep lovers tell me the shelf is here to protect the bodywork when you're banging up against rocks. Okay, so what? It's not that strong. In fact, it says right here, do not step on it, it can break. So, how much protection are you really getting? Well, I'm not going to hit any rocks to find out, but I still find this annoying. Just my opinion. I've driven a lot of SUVs, and I can tell you this is definitely in the top 5%. The steering response is excellent, and the cornering ability is superb. Well, the ride is slightly firm. It's still comfortable, especially when going over these railroad tracks. Didn't feel much there. Engine response is excellent, as is the braking performance. After driving the 4-cylinder and switching to the V6, no contest. This is far superior. Now, if you watch my videos, you know I don't shill for the manufacturers when I test these things. I tell it like it is. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'm telling you, on a scale of 1 to 10, this vehicle drives like a 10, and that's exactly how it is. A very impressive vehicle. Of course, that's on the street. We still have the off-road test coming up. Okay, I want to make one clarification. When I told you how great this vehicle drove, it's because I had the transmission in drive. That's the good news. The bad news is, if you put it in the manual override mode, there are some issues here. Issue number one, just because you manually shift into a certain gear doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. If the computer doesn't like what you're doing, it'll start shifting on its own. I don't particularly like that. Here's an example. I'm shifting to 4th, 5th, 6th, but I'm still in 1st gear. In fact, that brings up another issue. The indicator on the dash never really tells you the actual gear you're in, which makes it kind of worthless, I would think. For example, it says I'm in 9th, but once the camera focuses to the light, you'll see I'm actually in 1st. But the indicator still says 9th. Isn't autofocus wonderful? And third, 7 speeds is more than adequate. On some cars, they're going to 8 speeds because they're performance vehicles. They cost a lot of money, want to give you something to impress you. Why do we need 9 speeds anyway? That's a different video, another story. All I can tell you is as long as you leave this in drive, you'll be okay, but this manual override feature is nothing but a pain. Unless you're doing some serious off-roading, climbing hills, just hope it stays in the right gear. And that's my 10 cents worth. Now, before we do our off-road test tomorrow, we're going to do the headlight test tonight, since we're still driving on the street. We're going to see if these little skinny, narrow headlights actually put on enough light to make it worthwhile. So we're going to do that in a couple hours. Okay, it's nighttime. Let's see how these headlights work. From a distance of 100 feet on high beam, does spread out, although the volume of light is a little bit on the weak side. Adequate on low beam. Now we're at 300 feet. Beams reach out quite well. 300 feet at low beams. The wattage isn't that bright, but it does reach out more than adequate, so I give it a pass. You know, considering the dinky size of these front lights, I'm surprised we saw any light at all. So overall, I guess I'm impressed. Okay, rough ride, but we made it. You need at least a Jeep Wrangler to get back here. If you've got the Trailhawk package, it does about as good. I've driven down this road many times before in Jeep Wranglers, and I can tell you the Trailhawk can match it just as easily, as long as you're not matching it with the Rubicon. The V6 is definitely better than the 4-cylinder off-road, but I'm drinking up a lot of gas. Oh well. So here you go, the new 2015 Cherokee versus the old antique Cherokee. With the old inline 6 putting out 180 horsepower. Yeah, what a difference. I'll take the new one, thank you. Well, I don't think Chryslers want to get this back with all this mud on here, so I guess we better give it a car wash. Nothing like a wash job. I think I could use one too after a day in the desert. Maybe I should open the sunroof. I forgot, I don't have one. A little wash will be as good as new. For fuel consumption, this vehicle got 19 miles per gallon in mixed city expressway driving. At 75 miles per hour on the freeway, we got 23. Now on the back expressways, cruising around 60 to 65, we got 25 mpg. By comparison, the 4-cylinder Trailhawk we had earlier got around 20 to 21 in mixed city expressway commuting, 23 on the freeway at 75 miles per hour, and around 25 on the back roads doing around 60 mpg. So aside from city driving, not much difference. Now we're not saying you shouldn't get the 4-cylinder Jeep Cherokee, because the base vehicle that sells for $23,000 and 2-wheel drive is relatively light and should get pretty good gas mileage. But on the Trailhawk, when you're loaded down with these big tires, the extra gearing, the ground clearance, there just isn't going to be that much difference. And there's the price factor too. The Trailhawk starts around $31,000, and with the usual options you really don't need, but will get anyway, you're running around $36,000, which is what this costs. So you might as well spring up the extra $1,500 for the V6 power plant option. Because if you can afford a Trailhawk, you can afford the V6. There's certainly no fuel penalty as far as gas mileage bills go. Overall, the Jeep Cherokee with the Trailhawk package and V6 engine is one of the best vehicles I've ever driven on or off-road. On the negative side, I'm starting to lose faith in this 9-speed automatic and wondering if Jeep would be better off putting a different gearbox in. But that remains to be seen. For you hardcore guys who think the Jeep Wrangler is the only real thing, I have a link for a video I did previously on the Jeep Wrangler Mohawk. Just click and watch if you want.